We can talk offensive line, we can talk overall size, or we can talk roster depth. What fascinates you, Larry?
Let's talk offensive line.
Okay.
Football begins with the offensive line. It's the one. Jim Harbaugh said it. He's totally right. It's the one spot. It's the one position group that literally is not reliant upon any other for its success. So it all the beginning of football starts with your offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And the Niners offensive line is an enigma, and it's an awesome topic because over here, the fans are pissed and are like draft guys and what the heck. And the interesting thing, the Niners never drafted offensive linemen in the first round, hardly ever, right?
Right.
But they won Super Bowls. And if you win that game, you can kind of say, hey, this is the way we do it, and puff out your chest. When you lose that game, people take fault with your approach. And that's really what's going on here. The Niners still don't believe in investing big draft capital in offensive linemen.
Right.
Their argument is that it's like a cyclical type thing where you invest in young O-linemen at the top of the first round. They're really raw, but because of the investment, you play them. And then when they don't succeed right away, you're back in the top of the draft, and you're drafting more offensive linemen. And it takes 3-4 years to develop an offensive lineman sometimes, or usually.
It's getting worse.
Sometimes you have Don Pooney, but sometimes it takes time. So Niners offensive line, PFF says Brendel's not good, but like 24th out of 32. Chris Forster says he's the best center that this regime has had, blah, blah, blah. Why don't we start there? Well, what's going on at center? In your mind, is Chris Forster's a nice guy, and he's a good coach. He's a competent guy. It's not like he's some old guy sleeping. He's not asleep at the switch. He's a really bright, engaged, intense guy who does everything that he does for a reason. Yes. So before we get into this conversation, because invariably, you know the way this thing goes. The chat is like, Forster's a fool, and it's like, okay, so let's clear that one out of the room. He's not a fool. And I would tell you if he was. You guys know that. Yeah. I would absolutely tell you if I thought this guy was some jackal, just terrible, I'd be like, hey, this guy's stealing money. No, he's not. He's a good football coach. So let's start right
Jeff
there.
Stoutland, and it might be Chris Forster number 2. And his reputation around the league is near impeccable. Now, he's had some personal issues in the past and all these things, but when you talk about offensive line coaches and the best in the game, his name comes up in those conversations regardless of if I'm talking 49ers or not. So, and by the way, the 49ers could not be more all in on a position coach. Not even Chris Kusarek has this much power when it comes to buying in. Their entire plan for the 49ers on offensive line is effectively Chris Forster. And you give him chicken shit and he'll turn it into something close to chicken salad. It will at least be edible. Give him enough and he'll give you more than enough to be good enough. And that's their plan. As for center, first off, I think Brendel just looks better in the lower half in these limited drills, right? We don't know until we really see these guys in pads and they're able to make full contact. But I remember him looking really just not explosive at this time last year. And his lower half looked beat up and slow and bruised and tired. And I thought he had some really good pop in some of these drills. And that matters to me. As it pertains to the Chris Forster saying he's the best center we've had graded out, this is why it's so dangerous to try to quantify offensive line play. You and I both agree, I think everybody who watched the season, no one thinks that Jake Brendel had a good year. No one's looking at that and saying, oh yeah, more of that, please. He sucked in pass protection. He had no anchor. It got better as it went on, but he had no anchor whatsoever, and he looked slow in the run game, particularly early in the season. But this is a guy who also is handling all the protections. This is a guy who, as a center, has a lot more responsibility than most centers in terms of movement in the run game and, getting to guys' shoulders and hitting that 4-eye as everybody shifts to the left or shifts to the right. It's very difficult to discern if he did a good job or not on a play in the run game in particular if you don't actually know the play call, because that's going to define what it is he should do. And sometimes he does what he should do, and it doesn't look impressive or even competent, but he did what he was supposed to do. And it's on the next guy to get to the second level, and he doesn't get off of that block and go to the next guy. And so it looks like Brendel got beat. Now, pass protection, pretty cut and dry most of the time. Tougher with centers because of obviously stunts and things like that. It surprised me big time that he said that Brendel graded out very highly, but it doesn't surprise me in the sense that they view Brendel in a much better light than we do on the outside, because again, they know the responsibilities and all of the extra stuff that's put on Brendel. And I think that they saw somebody who did get better as the season went on, and they're willing to bet on that with a long off season to give one or two more good years. But this is where the Chris Forrester of it all comes in. I don't think Drake Nugent's ever going to play for the 49ers, but worst case scenario, right? Maybe Brendel does just in fact suck, and no one can deny it anymore, and it doesn't matter how well Chris Forrester has him graded out. He's a liability, and they got to get rid of him. Well, you can put Nick Sakelj at center. Is that a good option? Not particularly. Or you can put Matt Hennessy at center. It might be
who actually looked pretty good, I thought, at practice.
Looks like he's moving really well.
Yeah.
I like Matt Hennessy.
Yeah, he does move
and I
really
like
well.
the pop. So you have that option there. You have the Nuge. You have options. And I think that's the big takeaway that I've had. Okay, they don't have the guys that everyone wants. They don't have the heir apparent to Trent Williams. By the way, you can't replace Trent Williams. Why do you need to have some poor kid coming in here as his heir apparent? That's a ridiculous ask. There is no heir apparent to Trent Williams. You just pray that Trent Williams keeps playing, and when he decides to hang it up, you pray you can pivot, because you're going to lose no matter what when it comes to replacing Trent Williams. There is no replacement for Trent Williams. But they have viable backups at left tackle and right tackle now. I think Austen Pleasants, you agree, has looked very, very good. I love the concept of Spencer Burford. His hands are really powerful. I love the concept of Spencer Burford at tackle, and he does look lighter on his feet than he has in years past. I think he did a good job in the weight room of getting to the right body shape, but those hands are impressive. I mean, that is a punch and a half. It's going to shock some people. You have viable backup at left guard with Hennessy and a couple other guys. Barch looks fantastic. Totally get why they were so crestfallen when he went out last year. His tape was great for a game and a half, and he looks awesome. He looks big. He looks strong. He moves like a sumbitch. Really in on Barch. He's going to be the starter there at left guard. And then you have good, viable backups at center. And now with Connor Colby and Drew Moss are going to fight for a job here. You got good backups at right guard. So you have some serious depth. Does it have the high end that everyone's looking for? Does it have this, across the board, everyone's in the top 5 or top 10 that you're looking for? No. But you know what? If someone goes down, and probably more than one's going down, you're not losing that much. You go 10 deep. And I think on offensive line, in an era where a guy like Aaron Banks, who was unquestionably the weak link of the 49ers offensive line last year, teams were just attacking him repeatedly. They were going right at him again and again and again. That guy got $77 million. I would rather have the deeper team. I'd rather go 10 deep than have 2 or 3 really star guys, and then effectively you're having the Kansas City offensive line. You got a great left guard, you got a great center, you got a great right guard, but you have the 2 worst tackles in the league, and now you're paying Jalen Moore $15 million a year, a guy who couldn't beat out Colton McKivitz to be the right tackle on the 49ers. You're paying him $15 million a year, hoping that solves the problem. Or you're taking Kingsley Suo-Matia, who I'll cop to it. I thought he was going to be great. He wasn't. The 49ers gave him to the Kansas City Chiefs. Please take him. We don't want him. He sucked. He was awful last year. They're going to move him to guard. They can't play him at tackle. So now they're just trying to buy their way out of the problem with draft capital, with big-time free agent spending. This is what a lot of teams are doing. This is what the Rams did. This is what the Bears are doing this year. Kansas City's trying to buy their way out of problems. The Packers trying to buy their way out of their guard issues. And it doesn't work. All you do is you're paying off a credit card with a credit card, and you're paying off a credit card with a credit card. Now your debt's spiraling. Now you're underwater. Meanwhile, the 49ers are getting cheaper, and frankly, I think better. I see the vision on the offensive line plan. It's not sexy. It's not going to sell, but I think it's good enough, and I think they're going to have a better offensive line. And Brock Purdy was one of the better EPA quarterbacks in the league. I know EPA is a flawed number, and it can't be all-encompassed, but there were 15 quarterbacks in the league last year that got pressured more than 35% of the time. Brock Purdy was one of them. 2 of them had positive EPAs. Will Levis had a minus 94 EPA, which I didn't think was possible. He was one of the guys who was getting pressured all the time. Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold were the 2 guys who had positive expected points added despite being pressured 35% of the time or more, which was bottom half in the league. Sam Darnold was at plus 22. Brock Purdy was at plus 67. He had a top 10 EPA season. This is despite having the 27th ranked play action rate and the 29th ranked average receiver target separation. So he's getting no help from his receivers. He's getting no help from Kyle. And he's getting no help from his offensive line comparatively. And he's still putting up a top 10 season by EPA. Take it for what it's worth. What happens if that number comes down 5%? What happens if we're talking 30% pressure rate as opposed to 35%? That's an MVP caliber season, I think, reasonably, from Brock Purdy. What happens if they can get a little bit more separation, which is what Leonard Hankerson was talking about ad nauseum when we were talking to him the other day. It's about getting separation. It's about knowing we're getting man press. I can give you a good rep against zone. It's about getting against man press. This is why we need Cowing to be heavier. This is why we need Pearsall to be heavier, because they're going to get pressed. They got to stay on their lines. That's been their entire offseason. They know it's coming. Now they got to do it. What happens if this offensive line is just a little bit better than it was last year, a little healthier even, just on that baseline? If Brock Purdy's putting up these kind of numbers, and again, take the numbers for what they're worth. It doesn't catch all of it. But if he does that under those circumstances, what happens when he gets pretty good? What happens if he gets like 12th, 13th best offensive line instead of 20th? I'm excited for the possibility, and I think that this 49ers offensive line, just because of their depth, has the chance to provide that. So I'm all in. I see the vision. I see the light.
It's funny. It's like I kind of do as well. I mean, I know that people want to hear, criticism sometimes, but I'll say this. I mean, on this front, if I share the screen and we go through what they actually have real quick. This is what it looks like. I mean,
there we go.
Basically, yeah, we all know everybody, but I mean, Trent Williams, Ben Barch on the left side, Brendel, and the reason that Furster is so invested in Brendel is that they go back to Miami, and Brendel made Furster look good when Furster spoke up and said, "Hey, you know what? I got a center. We don't have to keep paying, Weston Richburg and the guy from Cal.
Don't need to bring in Alex Mack, who by
Alex
the way was
Mack.
a
We don't
shell
have
of
to
his former self.
Yeah, we don't have to keep paying these centers. I've got a guy, and he's smart, and he can do the job, and he's efficient, and I know him in Miami, and so they go back. So Brendel's his guy, and I understand that, but I just want to enter into the conversation that it's plausible that Matt Hennessy could be better.
Totally.
Or that Drake Nugent could be better, or that Nick Sakel could be better, or that Colton McKivitz could be better. And why is that even pertinent? Well, it's pertinent because, to me, the story of OTAs is that the 49ers, unless my eyes are totally deceiving me, have a revelation on their hands in Austen Pleasants. Now,
yeah, he looks awesome.
Austen Pleasants is been around the block. Okay.
to be fair. He's seen some shit.
Wait a second. Am I showing? Are you seeing this?
Oh yeah.
You're seeing all these teams?
Jacksonville, a lot. Carolina,
Jacksonville,
lot. Chargers, Bears, Cardinals,
Carolina, Chargers,
Cardinals again,
Bears, Cardinals, Chargers, Arizona, Chicago, San Francisco. Okay. One thing that's kind of good is that he keeps going back to places, so people keep wanting this guy back. I interviewed him when he came out here, when the Niners signed him. The Niners signed him late in the year just because they were running out of guys. And Chris told me, I was talking to Furster this week, and he said to me, he's like, "Hey, we signed him. He looked good in the tryout camp, but we really didn't know what we had, and we actually had to put him out there because we had a need, and he played all right. He actually played all right. But he goes, this year he obviously went somewhere and got himself in amazing shape, and he's like, he is a very huge man who's as good a mover at this weight as I've ever seen. And he's 6'6", 330. He's only 27.
Yep.
And he was moving in these offensive line drills like an all-pro kind of tackle. He was moving exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And he's big, powerful, and explosive. And next to Nicholas Petit-Frere, I'm looking at Nicholas Petit-Frere, and I'm just like, oh, my God, Nicholas Petit-Frere should just leave. He should just walk off the field. I don't know if I've ever seen in an NFL workout that dramatic a split between two guys that are basically, playing the same spot, going for the same thing. And sure enough, Petit-Frere didn't even make it to the next practice.
Why don't you just go home? Yeah.
He went home, and he looked horrible, and his career's over probably. And Pleasants looks like, so I mentioned this to Firster. I'm like, this guy looks amazing. And he's like, yeah. I mean, I don't even, this guy's moving, and the size and the movement and the strength. I'm telling you, there's a shot that there's a chance that their best 5-man alignment includes Austen Pleasants. And that means that somebody else would have to move somewhere else. But Austen Pleasants may be one of their best 5 linemen and may wind up getting on the field because
he'll get on the field. He'll get on the field
because a big, fast offensive lineman who's in his prime, and he looks fantastic.
I don't have any question that. I mean, I think it's between him and Burford. So now he and Burford are both free agents.
And
at the
Dillard.
End of the year,
there's also Dillard,
who I haven't seen or at least noted. But I mean, Pleasants is obvious. Like it's one of those things where we watched him in the first week, and you're like, wow, it's like really that boy can scoop. That's a lot of meat moving really fast, and that doesn't look normal, right? It just doesn't look normal. And we've seen how many offensive line drills throughout the years at every level. It's pretty easy to figure out who's got the it factor and who doesn't, in the run game at least. It was actually great that Trent Williams was there for OTAs on a strictly selfish level, because Trent Williams does the rep, and you're like, oh, that's how the rep is supposed to look. Like, it's as good as it gets. It's. I was just laughing at a lot of Trent Williams' reps because they're just flawless. They're unbelievably good. Austen Pleasants really wasn't that much different. It didn't look that different, and he is not Trent Williams. He's not Trent Williams. I don't know what he is going to look like when they have to actually anchor and do some pass pro. That could be his downfall. Not questioning it at all, but he is a markedly different body than last year. I'll say this, though. Colton McKivitz looks yoked. Colton McKivitz was out there lifting logs or doing something. Maybe it was just a good arm day. He looked different, too. There's a couple of guys on this team that look markedly different. I'm going to give it to Burford. He looks a little slimmer around the waist. I'm going to give it to Colton McKivitz, who just looks like really big, and like he looks like he grew into his frame. He's really an impressive in the upper body and on the shoulders. And then Pleasants looks different. And then 2 other guys. I think D. Winters looks bigger, and I think Jacob Cowing looks stronger. I don't know if he's bigger, but he's definitely more cut. He doesn't look like a kid who got handed a jersey and said, go play wide receiver, which is kind of what he looked like last year. He looks like an adult man and a professional football player for the first time. So the fact that 3 of those guys are on the offensive line, I think really is encouraging, because they're probably going to need, if Jalen Moore is out here getting $15 million a year and Aaron Banks is out here getting 77, this market is out of control. And Colton McKivitz might have been their best offensive lineman last year, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. And I think he's going to have a better year this year, which means that the 49ers are going to say, we're going to need a new right tackle because we don't pay that kind of money for Colton McKivitz or Mike McGlinchey or Aaron Banks or Jalen Moore. So Austen Pleasants and Spencer Burford are in the running. They're trying out not just to be the swing tackle, they're trying out to be the starting right tackle next year, I think.
Well, I'll tell you, I also went up to Burster and I said to him, I said, hey, man, you're coaching Connor. I'm standing right there. You're giving Connor Colby just an earful.
Yep.
Yep. And I said, I know the mindset, which is coach the guys that have the talent that you want to get better, coach those guys hard. And he had a big smile, and he admitted that he's coaching Connor Colby and Austen Pleasants different because he sees the talent that they have. And he also really likes Drew Moss. He's a Colorado State guy. Chris went to Colorado State, I guess, and he was joking about that, but he loves Drew Moss. He said Drew Moss is super tough.
Drew Moss
and
is clean. Drew Moss looks better than Connor Colby's got a little bit of a false step. He's got a little bit of a cross step. I like his hands don't have that same kind of power. Now, Moss gets a little bit too tight with his hands. He doesn't extend enough. He doesn't get enough of the biceps into his sets. But Moss, he's almost like a hovercraft. He's just low and smooth in his movement. It's like you can see that he's got this low center of gravity. And he looks like a mean son bitch too. You can see that Förster really likes him. He doesn't have a lot of coaching points for him because he just keeps telling him, really good job, really good job. Meanwhile, I mean, you're not kidding. He is giving Connor Colby the business. And again,
he's yelling at him.
It can be a positive thing. He wouldn't bother. He wouldn't bother if he didn't want him to get better. But there's a lot of stuff to clean up. He sees a lot more to clean up, which could end up meaning that he's a better player down the line, more potential than Moss. But as of right now, it wouldn't shock me at all if they had to get rid of one of the two, and they don't have to right now. But it feels like Moss has a lead in the race, and those two guys are definitely fighting for a roster spot, one single roster spot.
The reason we started right here on the offensive line is because this is where the whole thing starts.
Totally.
So, to me, the argument is that the 49ers didn't invest in the offensive line this year because they invested in the defensive line, and so they passed on addressing their offensive line. The narrative is the general narrative is that they passed on doing anything for their offensive line. Their offensive line is going to suck, and that's going to be their downfall. So if that's your premise, then we're not seeing the team the same way, because what I see is what you described. The best left tackle in football, really suitable left guard in Ben Barch, who I think for a fraction of the money may wind up giving you a better overall graded season than what Banks gave you. And I love Banks as a guy.
I love Banks as a guy too. Great guy. But Barch for $1 million or Banks for 17 isn't even a question. If they were making the same amount of money, I still might take Barch.
Yeah. So then you get Brendel, and it's like, okay, I don't think Brendel should start, but whatever. The nice thing is you do have options here between Hennessy and Nugent and Zakel. And if you told me what you just said about Moss is a tough guy, then maybe Moss could even play center, because he definitely has the body for center. For sure. And you got Pooney at right guard, who's a real good player. You got McKivitz, who looks like he's primed to earn a monster contract, and he's looking to have a big year and cash out. I'm sure
about to get that McGlinchey.
Then you got Pleasants and Andre Dillard at tackle, and Dillard was better in Green Bay than he was in Philadelphia, in my opinion.
True.
And then Burford, Zakel, and Hennessy, along with Nugent, Connor Colby, Drew Moss. The other guys aren't real, as far as Sebastian Gutierrez and Isaac Alarcon are just guys. I do kind of like Zach Johnson, though. Zach Johnson, Connor Colby, Drake Nugent, Drew Moss. You got those four guys. Then you got Burford, Dillard, Hennessy, Zakel, Pleasants. That's 9 decent linemen that don't start. So that's good depth, because you got 5. You got a full room of guys that know your system. You got a good coach, and I think I don't see you're not naked. Like if somebody goes down, Ben Barch goes down tomorrow, you could plug in Spencer Burford.
You'll live.
Burford goes down, you could plug in Connor Colby. Brendel goes down, you could plug in Matt Hennessy. I really think I think they're going to be okay. I know the premise is, oh my God, they're screwed because of their line, and you definitely don't want to lose Trent Williams. He is their Achilles heel.
Of course.
But everybody's got a player.
Williams. Don't put that in the universe, Larry.
Everybody's got a player like that. And that's Chris Jones for Kansas City. That's Justin Jefferson for Minnesota. That's we can name, that's Puka Nacua for the Rams. There's Verse or somebody.
Sure. Yeah.
Everybody's got a player or two that, oh my God.
You don't want to lose stars. Can't lose stars.
You don't want to lose your epic guys. So I would just say overall, before we jump to another topic, I think the Niner offensive line Could it be better? Yeah. If they had a gigantic Anthony Belton that they had drafted in the 4th round, just sitting right there, ready to plug in some gigantic. But that's not their guys. I'm telling you, what I saw from Austen Pleasants is the equivalent of like a 3rd round draft choice or 2nd round draft choice. I mean, he looked like a player. I'm not talking about like he's okay enough to make the roster as a backup. He looks like a guy that might be their best right tackle.
If Colton McKivitz got traded tomorrow, because I don't want to put injuries out into the universe, if he got traded tomorrow, just says I'm not, you don't sign me, trade me now, they could just go to Pleasants. And there would not be a significant enough drop-off to where you would fundamentally change your opinion on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, anything that happens beyond Trent Williams, it's going to be significant.
Sure.
But
it's okay to have one guy that you can't lose.
Of course. But that guy is also not, you're not putting him on a pedestal that he doesn't deserve. He's Mount Olympus all time. Like, It's Trent fucking Williams. Like, of course, you can't replace him. This idea that, just take somebody in the 1st round who can be the next Trent Williams. There's no next Trent Williams. The reason that the NFL is in the situation it's in, where offensive linemen are getting paid way more than they should based on their overall talent level and getting drafted way higher than they should based on how they're graded, is because there's not enough coming through the pipelines. We're betting on one characteristic of the guy and hoping that your offensive line coach can turn him into something. The problem is everybody is clamoring over one guy who's got one skill set, and now he's getting drafted 3 rounds earlier than he probably should. And everybody's going to pay the premium because they're afraid of what happens if they don't, because there's just not enough good offensive linemen. And that's an issue it comes down to a lack of bodies at the lower level. It comes down to how different the collegiate game is on the offensive line than it is at the professional level. It comes down to just straight coaching. The coaching isn't as good at these lower levels with offensive line. I mean, I think about the crappy offensive line coaches that you see in high school and even in college. I mean, it's kind of doughy, drunk guys. I mean, it's not all. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but there are some really embarrassing offensive line coaches out there. I might have had a few of them. So it's all to say that it makes total sense to me that a guy like Austen Pleasants, who has been tossed around so much that he can probably live on frequent flyer miles for the rest of his life on any vacation he wants to take, that at 27 years old, he's got enough experience now that he actually knows how to play fucking offensive line in the NFL. Because he's been in the NFL.
It sounds like it's amazing, but think about it. If I just told you, yeah, man, I know this guy and he's super talented and he's always been super talented, but he never really kind of figured it out in his early 20s, and it took to he was 25, 26, 27 before he kind of figured it all out. Would you be like, what? I cannot believe that.
It's totally logical. At a position where when you are thrown into the deep end from the jump, right? Okay, now listen, he was an undrafted free agent to Jacksonville. It's not as he never had a shot. He doesn't know what he's doing coming in, right? And then he bounces around because there's just enough. There's just these glimpses. But over that period of time, he's picked up just enough to be able to put himself in a position to where now Chris Foerster's let's dig in. We actually have a prospect here. That's the state of offensive line play. You're going to have to bounce around for a really long time just to be good enough to get a shot. And he's taken full advantage of it. All the credit in the world to him. But the idea of, go out and spend all this money on offensive line, what's that going to do for you? How'd that work for the Rams last year? How's that going to work for the Bears this year, spending all this money on the offensive line? If you want to spend your money on your own guys, go ahead. But when Aaron Banks is getting $77 million, I want to not be in the free agent game. I don't want to be in that game. And if what was the kid, Carson Vinson out of Alabama A&M, who I think everyone agrees, you like his feet, but is not a good offensive lineman and is probably a 2 or 3 year project. And then you look up on day 3 and in the 4th round he goes and you're like, oh, that was the clearest 7th round draft pick of all time. And he's gone in the 4th, and we're talking about the kid out of Texas, the offensive lineman out of Texas this year. Sorry, I forget his name, the tackle.
Cameron Johnson.
No, the other one.
Cameron Williams.
Banks.
Oh, Kelvin Banks.
Kelvin Banks, who I thought was a plotter. I thought was doughy. And obviously there's a lot of talent there, but it looks like it's going to need a redshirt year, to say the least, at the NFL level. and he's going in the top 10. Like the inflation on these guys is insane because it's supply and demand.
Oh, they're rare human beings.
Totally.
So if you get it together,
complete waste of talent by Dieter Kurtenbach, by the way, 6'8",
Yeah,
340 pounds natural walking weight. But here we are.
Here's Pleasants right here. Let's listen to a minute of Pleasants. I don't know if I can do this.
Larry does not subscribe to YouTube Premium. That's
it's no longer.
Hold on a second. Let's hear a little Pleasants.
First off, looks like an offensive lineman. That helps.
Here he is. This is me talking to Pleasants.
49er Austen Pleasants. And Austin, what's it like day one here in with your new team? What's going through your mind today?
Well, it's been great so far. A lot of the guys have been a really big help, just helping me, find my way around the building and whatnot. I'm excited to get to work. I'm excited for an opportunity. And at the end of the day, that's really all I want is an opportunity to be out on the field and doing what I love. So
you're an Ohio kid, right? Grew up Browns fan?
Bengals fan, yeah.
Bengals fan. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? What kinds of things are you into?
I grew up in Southeast Ohio. Pretty simple, upbringing. Grew up with my mom, my younger brother, and just played football, sports growing up. I'm a huge nerd, honestly. I love Marvel, Star Wars. I love Lego. I've been building.
Nice.
I love spending time with my family. I have a wife and a son, a 1-year-old.
Nice.
So I'm missing them a lot right now.
Where are they based?
They're in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Yeah. So we live in my hometown. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And you got some family support back there.
Of course. Yeah.
Everybody wants to gather around the baby, I'm sure, huh?
Yeah, of course.
So I got 4 kids. Going from 0 to 1 is the hardest. I just say that. Because, yesterday you're in the club and now you're sitting there rocking the baby to sleep. Going from 2 to 3 is hell, too, because they outnumber you and you got to play zone defense. How has having a kid changed your pro career? I mean, as far as does it seem different to you mentally now that you have a little guy?
Yeah, I mean,
everything
changes.
Yeah.
It's no longer about me.
Right.
It's about us. It's about him, and making sure that I'm the best example that he has of, what it is to be a man, what he wants to look up to be, and that's really I live every day with that in mind. So.
Very cool. Anyway, just a little bit of Austen Pleasants there. We don't play the whole interview.
I think we're going to be hearing a lot from Austen Pleasants as the season progresses. Kind of the last takeaway on this, like, it's good that there's clear-cut competition for backup jobs, right? Like, I think that the starting offensive line is pretty well set. I don't think there's any competition. I think it's Barch at left guard, and I think Forster isn't even pretending to have a competition there. But when you got Hennessy and Zakelj fighting it out for a spot, and you got Colby and Moss fighting it out for a spot, and you got, to a degree, Burford and Pleasants fighting it out for a spot, like, that's a really positive thing. And none of these guys are just charity cases. Got to have competition. That's what I want. I would rather have the deep team than the team that's got 3 highly paid guys and has to figure it out everywhere else. Give me.
Well, if you're not sure about Barch, or you're not sure about Brendel, or you're not sure about, it's nice to have at least a solid backup line of guys that won a hard competition in the summer, ready
earned it
to go. And I think the numbers look good, actually. I think, really, I mean, Trent Williams and McKivitz are going to be your tackles. Dillard against Pleasants against Burford for maybe 2 spots, maybe 1. And then Hennessy against Zakelj and Nugent and Moss and probably Zach Johnson and Colby for maybe 2 spots. I mean, it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tight.
And
they might have to go with an extra one.
Might have to go with an extra one. A couple guys may have to go through waivers and hit the practice squad. You get a hope that nobody, if they lost Kingston last year at the cutdown. Right. It's easy to lose guys at the cutdown.
But and to be fair, Kingston I spent a lot of time watching Kingston, right? And I watched
powerlifter.
And I go, like, I'd much rather have Nugent than Kingston if you have to make that choice. And that's the choice they made. Now, it was an easier choice. They tried to get them both. But, Kingston never, impressed. Like, you could see he moves pretty good to his right, but it was a little wonky on the left, and he didn't look like he was confident in his movements. I still wanted them to keep him around. I want to see more. I don't want anyone, if you have an offensive lineman that's got something enough to draft him, like, you don't want to lose him. But
he was enormously strong.
And that's not something that was terribly evident in his play from the training camp reps that we were able to see. Might have manifested with time. And he moved interestingly, and I think he kind of got a bad rap at USC. I need to check in on Jared Kingston as it pertains. I think he's with the Carolina Panthers now. I'm interested to see how that goes because Panthers got an interesting little roster. But
yeah, I mean, they got Ekwonu on that line. He's probably one of the best tackles in the game.